Welcome to the Future of Customer Service podcast. I'm Andrea Paulton from Inbenta, and I will be interviewing customer support and service professionals to see what is currently working well, what issues they're trying to overcome, and the future success of customer service. Hello. Today we have Adamo Maino. He's the Director of Support at FinancialForce. Thank you so much for being here. Adamo, tell us, what do you do for FinancialForce?
I am the Director of Customer Support based out of San Francisco, and my team has a couple different sub-teams in it. We have our application support analysts that support our applications based on the Salesforce platform. And in that, we also have product support engineering and our technical account managers and escalation team.
Okay, so that San Francisco picture behind you is before the smoke. What is it like there right now?
It's actually better. It's mostly cleared up, at least on certain days.
Okay.
It's sometimes better than others, but hopefully it'll pass. Yeah.
Okay. So your introduction was really good. I want to ask a little bit more about FinancialForce. Who do you guys serve?
So we have we have a couple different applications. So we've got accounting, we've got PSA, professional services automation. We have supply chain management, and we also have HCM. And so those products are all based in the cloud. They all fit nicely together. We've got, our customers are from every part of the industry. We have everything from consulting to, massive companies, sort of IBM size companies, all the way down to very small companies as well. So SMB, mid-market, and enterprise, all of that, all those segments we serve.
Got it. Everybody.
Everybody. And it's everybody from, we might have like a CPA calling in all the way to a Salesforce administrator at that company. So it's all varying technical levels as well.
Got it. All right. So I have 5 questions for you today for today's podcast episode. Number 1, what have you done to promote great customer service in your organization?
I think the first thing is just promoting a culture of listening to the customers. And so it's not just about the case, but what's beyond the case. And so, trying to get our analysts to sort of focus on, okay, is it just this, problem that they've reported in, or is it there's something sort of a little bit larger, and then sort of start digging in. Also driving autonomy and trust within our team. That's a big thing for me, is to have a team that's autonomous. If I step out, it's like I'm there as a coach. I'm not there, sort of on the sort of nitpicky sort of thing that should be going on. It should really have an autonomous team, giving them full transparency to what we're doing. And so that's another way to sort of promote that trust. And then finally, really sort of creating a culture that's based off innovation and driving that innovation with our team members. So having team be part of those projects, leading those projects, and having direct input into everything that we do.
And how big is your team? How big is your staff?
So worldwide, we have a staff of close to 60. And then my team alone is 18.
Okay, nice. So all companies, or most companies, have limited resources, either limited resources in time, limited resources in budget, or limited resource in people. If you have that currently, what are you doing with that lack of resources? How are you managing that?
It's pretty timely, obviously, in sort of the world we are in right now. I think when COVID hit for us, it was really about less of a scramble on the technology side. We're all 100% in the cloud, so we could work anywhere. But it was really about sort of how do we maintain, sort of what we're doing when we've got, I've got 2 kids, and we've got kids across our teams. And like, so how do you do that? How do you have like a normal day? And you just don't. So I think that the first thing was like, accept that you just don't have the same amount of resources. So then what do you do? And I think for us, it was great. We have a culture of collaboration and teamwork. And so we all picked up pieces where we could. And it meant sometimes adjusting hours on certain customer cases, working, those cases a bit in different parts of the globe. Maybe, one of our team members sort of became sort of the primary childcare for that house. And so how do you do that? We just, offloaded a lot of those cases and shared, those cases around. And then the other thing really has been sort of focusing on a community first approach. And I think that's really important, is to drive that level of effort down with the customers and give them a true self-service model. And so for us, we were pretty successful already with our KCS program. So KCS plus our community, we're getting about 20% customer enablement, or case deflection, as it translates into. So that drove down the amount of cases that were coming in. And so that was definitely sort of a big bonus. And then lastly, really, look for automation, find out where there's some automation, and find out where you can sort of take out that heavy lifting and drive down the administrative tasks that your team has to do, even if it's on, sort of, not even, I should say, especially if the manager, line manager, or anybody really just can roll up their sleeves and take out some of those, things that are just kind of arguably just sort of weighing the team down. Take them on, roll up your sleeves, do the dirty work, let your team, do what they do best, which is helping our customers.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they have all these processes, like a lot. And granted, he did say it was too many, but every time before you have a call, you have to write this sheet. Then after the call, you have to write the sheet. And then you have to write the sheet for this manager and all this stuff. And they got rid of all of that. And they're like, you know what, we're not going to do any of that stuff. We have limited resources. And he said it's working so well without it that they realized they never needed it in the first place. So we're learning with COVID how we can do with less.
Yeah, lean it down. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So how do you measure the success of your customer service team?
So I think I like to do metrics that matter and metrics that promote good behaviors. So I think there's a difference between the metrics that you show, your team, and then the ones that I that you call gray metrics that you have in the background. But like, you should never rate metrics like, how many cases they solved. Like, there should never be some number that they're trying to hit. Like, that promotes horrible behavior. Or, even like how long it took to solve that case on the phone, or, through sort of any means. Like, there shouldn't be a sort of a dead fast number there. So we do a sort of an envelope of a myriad of different metrics. Team happiness is a big one for us. So we measure team happiness, and we have a Tiny Pulse survey that goes out and make sure our team is happy. If our team is happy, our customers are happy. We do KCS, so our knowledge base. We have 3 measures that go in there. That's accuracy, link rate, participation, and AQI. And if they're adding and contributing to the knowledge base, then that is overall going to help our organization. CSAT, the obvious industry standard, we definitely do that. Our CSAT actually has multiple parts on it, so we get to see kind of where we're measuring. So one is sort of the overall happiness on the case. We have a question about our organization, and then the analyst themselves. So we can kind of break that out and show where the analysts' behaviors are, and give that feedback back to our analysts, and then they can see sort of where they measure up. And that works really well. Let's say if you're delivering some really bad news, like, hey, we've got this bug we're still working on. It's not going to be in the next release. It's going to be, sort of further out. And, that's a horrible message to deliver. But the analysts, like, getting pinged on their CSAT for that's kind of rough, right? No matter how well they deliver that message. So if we break that out into different areas, then the analyst can kind of see like, oh, the customer's rated me, sort of 5 out of 5 for delivering a really cruddy message, but they're just not overall satisfied with the process in the case. And that's totally fine. We can break those up. And then the other thing is to look at is number of escalations. And that's not an individual statistic. That's just overall health of the organization. If we have a lot of escalations going on, obviously that means that we've got to look at efficiencies, headcount, et cetera. And then, I do look at number of cases, but again, I do that as a gray metric, and I do that comparative to the team. And so I look at, if there's sort of a number of cases that we look at as throughput, if that doesn't necessarily always mean that same thing. You might have somebody who's really technical and they're only taking a couple of cases, but those cases are taking a long time. And you just know that's the reason that person has fewer cases and throughput than somebody who might just be sort of crushing some easier cases, right?
Yeah. So as the director of support, how often do you look at the actual metrics?
So we have weeklies. We have weekly support meetings that happens across the globe. Every manager does that. And then we meet as a management team once a week as well. And so usually, as far as looking at sort of larger metric shifts, you want to do that like once a month. Doing that like on a weekly basis, you're not going to get a lot of a shift that's happening. But if you look at the monthlies and sort of start seeing trending, I think that's a lot more powerful to look at. Okay. And then your one-to-ones, you're covering that information on individual performance with your team members.
Okay. Then how do you personally think artificial intelligence is changing customer service?
I think this is a huge area. I was just in the Consortium for Service Innovation last week. They had an event last week, their annual meeting, and there's a lot of buzz here. And so I think I'm not really sure sort of where it's going to have the most impact now. I'm sort of watching to see how well things progress in this area and how well companies can tackle it. I think one area I really like is in KCS, is in knowledge management and using natural language. So when customers ask a question, it's not sort of something they have to really statically put in. And on the back end in that knowledge article, you have to just trust that the analyst is still thinking as the customer and putting it in. But it might be a very technical, sort of piece of information. And so where I see AI is working really well is sort of picking up on the natural language that the person puts in and then matching that with the article. I think that's fantastic. The other place where I really think this is going to sort of bust open a lot of gates is how we process the information that comes in with the customer and where and how those cases get routed to. We use intelligent swarming. And so we don't have tiers. The case comes in, and then based on a certain skill set, it gets routed out to an appropriate team member. And I think that whole model needs to change in the sense of how we categorize things. And right now, you have the customer select a category or a subcategory, and then it gets to the analyst, and they change that hopefully based on what their initial, sort of analysis is, right? And I think I think that model is just very static and old. And I think what's going to end up happening is that cases are going to come in. The customer doesn't have to select any category at all. And that can be assigned and routed through the intelligent swarming model to not only like the best person, but maybe a couple people that could solve that case together more effectively. And you could start bringing in things like sentiment analysis and look at how angry that customer is. And if that customer is super agitated, you might want to pair that with somebody who's fantastic at customer service, and then a super, sort of tech on top of that, and have that team really sort of interact with that customer first. And I think that's where you're going to get a lot of power in not only solving the cases, but having the customer feel very confident in that process. So yeah, myriad of skills. Let's look at tagging the cases and maybe saying like, in this case came in, these are the areas that it actually touched. It wasn't just, time cards and PSA. It was time cards plus Salesforce issues, plus this, plus that. And that's really what the problem was about. We're so sort of, our mindset has been like, it's got to fit in this little bucket. And that's just, it doesn't do that anymore. We know that's not where the data should live and how we should be looking at it.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a good way to think about that. All right. So my last question for you is, what is the number one advice that you have for customer service departments?
Stop being a manager. Stop being a manager and be a coach. Don't try to obviously don't micromanage, but stop thinking about it as in some hierarchical thing. I think we're changing the way we look at management structures, and we're in our organization, we have a couple of roles, right? We have like myself, I've got a team that I directly manage as a line manager. I'm also a director, and we have teams across the globe, and we're all doing different things. And so the hierarchy's not the same. You're not doing this sort of pyramid management model. You should just be a coach first. Like whatever your team consists of, be a coach. So start thinking about it that way. Broaden your teams. Stop looking at teams having to just be, in support, and maybe start thinking about things that are composed of support and other parts of the business and put them together. And if you start thinking about, okay, well, I'm a coach, right? Then that model makes a lot more sense. I think that's a good sort of indicator where the industry is moving as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. So let me ask you a follow-up question on that. So when you are a coach, so you're the director and you are the coach, does it ever blur lines about management and how you are, managing the team? Or is it very similar where you're kind of still, the leader and you're the teacher? Is there anything that's a lot different than being a manager besides the micromanaging part and, telling people what to do?
I think it's just a mindset shift. If you can call it whatever you want, but I think, to me, like, a leader, you're setting direction, but don't try to fill in every gap, don't try to take over every little thing. And even if you're not a micromanager, like, don't run projects by yourself, like that's ridiculous. Like, your team should be running those. They should be making decisions. And so letting your team make decisions and driving autonomy, and you're coaching, you're standing back and you're letting that happen. That's where you want to be. Coach where things are at. If people are starting to fall down, pick them up. If they're succeeding and exceeding expectations, reward them. That's where we should be sort of focused, like this, like holding the team up, right? Not looking down. Whenever I do intro calls, I always say I work for my analysts. So if we're on a customer call and they do the introductions, I always say I work for this person, because I do. That's my job, is I'm trying to help this person. So I work for them. And so I think that's the sort of the biggest mind shift. I think that we all need to make that as managers, and stop thinking about ourselves that way.
Oh, I completely agree. I love that. And on that great note, we're going to end today. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by Inbenta. Inbenta Symbolic AI implements natural language processing that requires no training data with Inbenta's extensive lexicon and patented algorithms. Check out this robust customer interaction platform for your AI needs, from chatbots to search to knowledge centers and messenger platforms. Just go to our website to request a demo at inbenta.com. That's INBENTA.com. And if you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave us a review. Thank you.